The standoff between California Governor Gavin Newsom and the federal government over commercial driver's licensing has officially escalated, and federal officials are now openly warning California it could lose its authority to issue any commercial driver's licenses if compliance issues aren't fixed. That escalation became public late last week when Sean Duffy went on News Nation with Katie Pavlich. Watch the clip here.
Because if you get a driver's license in California, a commercial driver's license, you're going to drive all over the country with that license. So he's actually endangering every single American on our roadways. We have 40,000 deaths a year on American roads. We want to make it safer. Gavin Newsom is making it more dangerous. And so what we're going to do is we pulled money from him. Almost $160 million in one tranche, $40 million in a different tranche. But if they don't come into compliance, we will eventually pull their ability to issue commercial driver's licenses to anybody in California. And again, I don't want to fight with Gavin. This is not about me in a political war. This is about me driving safety and doing the right thing, and Gavin should do the same, but he refuses.
Okay, so obviously during that clip, Duffy framed the dispute as a safety issue, pointing to roughly 40,000 roadway deaths each year. He reiterated that about $200 million in federal transportation funding has already been pulled from California, something that we talked about in an earlier video a couple of weeks ago. We'll clip it right here if you guys want to watch that one first to understand the full context of what's going on in the situation. Now, Sean Duffy made it obviously clear if the state doesn't fix its CDL compliance problems, the Department of Transportation is prepared to revoke California's authority to issue commercial driver's licenses entirely.
But if they don't come into compliance, we will eventually pull their ability to issue commercial driver's licenses to anybody in California.
And that's the key point. Now, this wouldn't just impact the roughly 17,000 non-domiciled CDLs at the center of this dispute. It would apply to every CDL holder in the state of California. So how did we get here? Now, this goes back, and we talked about this in our earlier video about California losing its $160 million in federal safety funding, but it goes back to an audit that was released by the FMCSA in August of 2025. Now, that audit found that California had issued thousands of non-domiciled CDLs with expiration dates that extended beyond the lawful presence documentation, a direct violation of long-standing federal rules. The FMCSA concluded that 25% of California's non-domiciled CDLs were improperly issued. Now, this part really matters. The finding had nothing to do with the Trump administration's September 2025 emergency rule on non-domiciled CDLs. That rule came later and was eventually stayed by the DC Circuit. The FMCSA has been clear that California's problems existed well before the rule and independently of it. Now, in November of 2025, California agreed to revoke about 17,000 improperly issued CDLs by January 5th, 2026. But then again, on December 30th, the California Department of Motor Vehicles announced a unilateral 60-day extension, pushing the deadline to March 6th. The state said it needed more time to avoid wrongfully revoking licenses for drivers who still qualify. The FMCSA did not approve the extension, and California moved ahead anyway. And on January 7th, DOT followed through on earlier warnings and withheld that roughly $160 million in federal funding tied to the National Highway Performance Program and the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program. That came on top of roughly the $40 million they already had withheld from California's refusal to enforce federal English language proficiency requirements. And that's how they got roughly $200 million pulled. And like we talked about in our last video right around September 7th when they had that $160 million pulled, that's not the biggest issue or even the biggest lever that DOT can pull. Federal law gives DOT much stronger authority. And under federal regulation and statutes, the FMCSA can decertify a state CDL program if it determines the state is not in substantial compliance. Now, if that happens, California would be barred from issuing, renewing, transferring, or upgrading any commercial learner's permit or CDLs until the issues are corrected. Any existing CDLs would technically remain valid on paper, But here's where it gets really messy. Other states could start to refuse California's CDLs, and the FMCSA could issue guidance declaring those licenses invalid for interstate commerce, and the national CDL verification system could flag California-issued licenses nationwide. California has more than 700,000 CDL holders, the largest trucking workforce in the country. Over 138,000 drivers move freight through ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach and the Central Valley's agricultural supply chain and major retail distribution hubs that feed the rest of the country. So if decertification happens, the disruption wouldn't be theoretical. It would be immediate and it would be nationwide. And this fight is no longer just about 17,000 licenses. California is now under pressure from both sides. At the federal level, DOT continues to withhold funding while openly discussing CDL decertification. At the same time, class action lawsuits filed by advocacy groups argues that California's own administration and their technical failures caused these mismatched expiration dates, and the drivers should be allowed to reapply immediately. And the state has actually admitted its systems had shortfalls, but that admission hasn't softened the federal position. FMCSA's stance remains firm. Licenses issued in violation of federal requirements can't stay active while states work through their internal fixes. Funding was withheld because California acknowledged issuing thousands of licenses that didn't meet federal standards, and then failed to revoke those licenses on an agreed timeline. So what that means is, for now, the nuclear option is on the table. Now, whether Sean Duffy and DOT actually follows through and pulls California's authority to issue CDLs, that will depend on what the state does next. But the message from Washington is unmistakable. Prolonged noncompliance may carry consequences far beyond lost funding. So what do you guys think? Are you guys in favor of Sean Duffy and the Department of Transportation revoking California's authority to be able to issue CDLs? But again, what do you guys think? Leave a comment down below. Tell us what you guys think. I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear from the audience what you guys think over California's issue. Are you a driver in California with the California CDL? Would this impact you? What are your thoughts?